7 guys from South Korea changed the global music industry in ways no analyst predicted and no textbook had mapped. BTS went from sharing a single cramped dorm room to appearing in a Harvard Business School case study within a decade. But here's the thing nobody talks about. The stage was never their only chessboard. While the world watched them sell out stadiums and break Billboard records, each of the 7 members was quietly building something else entirely. Real ventures, real money, real decisions that most people their age were nowhere near making. We're talking about a rapper who turned his apartment into a private art museum and is planning to open his own exhibition space. A vocalist who co-owns a restaurant his fans weren't even supposed to know existed. A dancer who demolished a billion-won house to build something better in a neighborhood where Samsung's late chairman lived. These aren't rumors. These are documented, verified moves that have gone largely unnoticed outside Korea. 7 different members, 7 different strategies, and almost none of it tied to the BTS name. Who built the most quietly? Who moved the earliest? And which member's business bet paid off in a way even industry veterans didn't see coming? Let's get into it. Number 7. The silent restaurateur, Jin. Kim Sok-jin is the member BTS fans most associate with food. His long-running personal broadcast series, Eat Jin, where he simply ate meals on camera and talked to fans, became one of the most watched solo content formats in the group's early years. The premise was simple: a handsome guy eating good food and being funny about it. It built a reputation so specific that when Jin quietly stepped into the restaurant business, it felt almost inevitable in hindsight. What was not inevitable, and what nobody expected, was how deliberately he tried to keep it hidden. The restaurant opened in April 2018, but it was not until a few months later that the public found out it was co-owned by Jin and his brother. That's not an accident. In the K-pop industry, where every move an idol makes gets analyzed and monetized, choosing to open a business without announcing it is a conscious choice. Jin made that choice. The restaurant is called Asu Seiro Mushi, and it is owned by Jin's older brother, Kim Sok-jung, who also serves as CEO, while Jin co-owns it and holds the position of director. That structure is deliberate. By placing his brother as the public-facing owner and operator, Jin kept the business out of his idol spotlight. It wasn't a vanity project built around his name. It was a family venture designed to function as a real restaurant, not a fan destination. The concept they chose reflects that same grounded intent. The restaurant specializes in traditional Japanese cuisine, particularly steamed food served in wooden steamers or trays made of cypress wood, which helps preserve the color and flavor of ingredients like sliced beef, pork, and vegetables. The cypress wood detail is not incidental. It's a quality decision. Hinoki cypress, used traditionally in Japanese onsen and high-end ryokan settings, absorbs heat evenly and imparts no chemical flavor to the food. It's expensive and it signals intent. The interior carries a strong Japanese influence, using wooden fixtures and dividers between booths to create a private and classy ambiance. The brothers also incorporated their shared love of the anime One Piece into the decor, placing collectibles around the space to give it more personality. That last detail tells you something important. This wasn't a generic investor's restaurant built to return capital. It reflects actual taste and actual interest. 2 brothers who grew up watching the same show put that shared history into the walls of a business they built together. Originally opened in Jamshil area of Seoul, Asu Seiro Mushi later closed that first location and now operates solely from its branch in Yeouido. The Yeouido branch is significant. It's one of Seoul's most densely populated business and financial districts, home to major broadcasting networks, corporate headquarters, and a steady lunch and dinner crowd that isn't there for celebrity associations. It's a location that works commercially on its own merits. Despite Jin never publicly promoting the restaurant himself, it became extremely popular, with walk-in waits of up to 2 hours reported even right at opening time. That kind of organic demand is what separates a real business from a celebrity pop-up. The restaurant's resilience was tested hard. During the COVID pandemic, Jin openly mentioned on a radio program that his brother was suffering from the loss of business and had recently sold his car to keep the restaurant afloat. That's a level of vulnerability that most celebrities avoid disclosing. Jin brought it up not to promote, but seemingly out of genuine worry for his family. The pandemic hit the food and beverage industry across Korea with brutal force, and small independent restaurants with no franchise backing faced the worst of it. The fact that Asu Seiromushi survived that period and is still operating today, with its Yeouido location now serving as a documented destination for both Korean diners and international fans, is the actual measure of the business, not the name above the door, but the food still being served years later. The restaurant notably became the place where Jin shared a final meal with fellow member J-Hope just before his military enlistment, a moment they shared on social media. That one social post, arguably the most exposure the restaurant has ever received from a BTS member directly, turned a private family business into a documented landmark for millions of fans overnight. Jin's deliberate silence about it for years made that single moment land harder than any marketing campaign could have. Number 6. The Art Collector Building an Empire, RM. Kim Namjoon entered Big Hit Entertainment as a teenager who had already turned down offers from multiple agencies. He was recruited specifically for his rap ability and his intellect. He taught himself conversational English primarily through the American sitcom Friends, and by the time BTS debuted in 2013, he was already the group's designated spokesperson in a language none of his bandmates spoke fluently. That intellectual curiosity never stayed confined to music. It moved, predictably, toward art. What was not predictable was the scale and seriousness with which he built an entire investment portfolio around it. RM's art journey started in 2018 when he found himself alone in a hotel room during a tour in Chicago. He visited the Art Institute of Chicago, where he encountered the work of Seurat and Monet, and something shifted. That single afternoon in Chicago triggered a collecting habit that has grown into one of the most closely watched celebrity art portfolios in Asia. The first work he ever purchased was Korean Impressionist artist Lee Dae-won, born 1921, a deliberate choice that reflected his early commitment to Korean art specifically. He didn't start with a blue-chip Western name to signal status. He started with a Korean painter most people outside the art world had never heard of. From the look of his public posts, RM owns pieces by KAWS, Ugo Rondinone, and Joel Shapiro, as well as Korean artists Yoon Hyung-kun, Chang Uk-chin, and Lee Bae. That list spans continents, movements, and price points. One particularly notable acquisition is a sculpture by American multidisciplinary artist Roni Horn, a hefty translucent glass cylinder titled Untitled, but the boomerang that returns is not the same one I threw, reportedly acquired from Belgian gallery owner Xavier Huefkens for approximately $1.2 million. A single sculpture, $1.2 million, purchased not for a wall, but for a living space that he has curated with the same intentionality a museum director would bring to a permanent collection. RM's apartment at 91 Hanam in Seoul, which he purchased for approximately 6.3 billion Korean won, has been counted by fans to contain over 102 individual pieces of paintings, sculptures, and moon jars. His fellow BTS members have joked that visiting his home feels like walking into a gallery rather than a place where someone actually lives. That's not an exaggeration. In November 2019, RM first bought a unit at Hanam the Hill for 4.9 billion won, later selling it for 5.8 billion won in March 2021, before purchasing his current 9-1 Hanam unit for 6.3 billion won the same month. That transaction alone, buying and selling within roughly 16 months and netting a 900 million won gain, reflects a level of real estate awareness that goes beyond lifestyle spending. What makes RM's portfolio genuinely unusual is that it isn't purely financial. He received an official appreciation plaque from South Korea's Cultural Heritage Administration for his contribution to preserving and promoting Korean cultural artifacts outside the country. A pop star receiving formal recognition from a government cultural body for his collecting activity is not a standard career milestone. It places him in a category of patron that has historically been occupied by industrialists and institutional donors, not musicians in their late 20s. On the Art Basel podcast, RM spoke about seriously planning to open his own private exhibition space, a small venue where he could display his collection, with a cafe operating on the first floor. He described it as something he has been thinking about for a long time, not a vague future idea, but an active plan being worked through. His art-loving habits have become so identified with him that fans coined the verb Namjooning to describe the practice of visiting museums and galleries. When a person's name becomes a verb for a cultural activity, that activity has clearly moved well beyond hobby territory. Number 5. The underground producer who never stopped working, Suga. Min Yoongi grew up in Daegu, a city in the southeast of South Korea that sits far outside the entertainment industry's gravitational center in Seoul. He was the younger of 2 sons in a family that did not support his decision to pursue music. His parents saw rap as an unstable path with no financial guarantees, and they were not wrong to think so. At the time, the Korean underground hip-hop scene offered almost no viable route to a sustainable income. Yoongi pursued it anyway. He learned MIDI production at age 13 after being inspired by hip-hop groups, and by his mid-teens he was writing, recording, and producing his own tracks under the underground name Gloss. He was doing this before he had a label, before he had a stage, and before anyone outside a small local scene had any reason to pay attention to him. That pre-debut grind is the foundation of everything that came after. When Yoongi joined Big Hit Entertainment and debuted as Suga in BTS in 2013, he didn't leave the production work behind, he embedded it into the group's identity. He became one of the primary songwriters and producers in BTS's catalog, accumulating credits at a rate that eventually earned him formal industry recognition. In 2018, he became the first BTS member to be promoted to full membership in the Korea Music Copyright Association, known as KOMCA. That promotion requires meeting a specific threshold of musical creation output and verified revenue from songwriting credits. It is a professional credential, not a fan vote or popularity metric. It means the industry itself classified him as a serious, productive composer before BTS had even reached the height of their global fame. His solo work as August D, a name built by reversing Suga and adding DT for Daegu, town, his hometown, operates as an entirely separate artistic and business identity. His 2016 self-released mixtape, under that name, was uploaded to SoundCloud for free, with no commercial release infrastructure behind it. He produced it himself, funded nothing from label resources, and put it out purely on his own terms. That decision established a creative independence that ran parallel to his group commitments for years. His second mixtape, D2, followed in 2020, again self-produced, and his first official studio album, D-Day, arrived in April 2023, completing a trilogy that he wrote, composed, and produced in its entirety. The commercial scale of what that solo work generated is not trivial. By August 2023, his combined streaming output across the Suga and August D profiles had surpassed 3 billion streams on Spotify, making him the most streamed Korean solo artist on the platform at that point. That figure includes his contributions to BTS albums as a credited producer and songwriter, which means his publishing and royalty revenue stream runs significantly deeper than his performance income alone. Every BTS track he has a writing credit on generates royalties every time it is streamed anywhere in the world. Given the scale of BTS's global catalog, albums that have sold millions of copies and accumulated billions of streams, the compounding effect of those credits represents a substantial ongoing revenue source that has nothing to do with touring, endorsements, or stage appearances. The documentary series Suga, Road to D-Day, released on Disney+, followed him traveling across multiple countries while working on D-Day. It was not a behind-the-scenes fan package. It was a structured film distributed on one of the world's largest streaming platforms, presenting him explicitly as a working artist navigating the creative process in real time. That kind of platform placement for a solo K-pop documentary was not standard at the time. His D-Day World Tour in 2023 was his first individual tour, covering cities across the United States, Indonesia, Thailand, Singapore, Japan, and South Korea. He built an audience large enough to fill international arenas as a solo act, an audience that existed because of years of free mixtapes, self-funded production, and underground credibility that predated any of BTS's commercial machinery. Number 4. The Dancer Who Bought Seoul One Floor at a Time. J-Hope. Jung Ho-sok was not the member most fans initially associated with business instincts. He was the energy of BTS, the one whose job on stage was to make everything look effortless, whose designated role in group dynamics was optimism made physical. He was the first BTS member to release a solo mixtape, Hope World, in 2018, doing so entirely without label promotion, and it debuted at number 38 on the Billboard 200, purely on fan-driven demand. That was a signal, not just of his individual fan base, but of a personal operating style that quietly moved ahead of expectations without announcing itself first. Before any of that, Ho-sok's origin story in dance is one of the more grounded pre-debut narratives in BTS's history. He was a member of a street dance crew called Neuron in Gwangju, his hometown, years before he ever auditioned for Big Hit Entertainment. Street dance in South Korea in the late 2000s was not a career, it was a subculture. There were no guarantees attached to it, no industry pipeline that moved you from a local crew to a national stage. He trained in it anyway, developing a technical foundation in popping and locking that would later make him one of the most technically precise dancers in a group already known for its choreography standards. His 2024 documentary series, Hope on the Street, released on Prime Video across more than 240 countries, spent 6 episodes tracing that origin, following him back through Gwangju, Osaka, Paris, New York, and Seoul, reconnecting with his former instructor Boogaloo Kim, a popping champion, and meeting street dancers along the way. A documentary about a K-pop idol's dance roots, reaching a global streaming platform in over 240 countries, is a business outcome, not just a creative one. His solo album, Jack in the Box, released in 2022, debuted at number 6 on the Billboard 200. That chart position for an entirely Korean-language album from a solo K-pop artist with no English-language crossover single attached to it was a measurable commercial achievement. The follow-up project, Hope on the Street, Volume 1, released in March 2024, was structured as the soundtrack to his documentary, 6 tracks tied directly to the film's narrative arc, featuring collaborators including J. Cole, giving it genuine crossover reach. He completed and prepared all of it before beginning his mandatory military service in April 2023, managing the release schedule remotely while actively enlisted. That level of forward planning on a multi-platform creative and commercial project, executed while simultaneously fulfilling a legal national service obligation, is a specific kind of operational discipline. The real estate picture is where the business activity becomes most concrete. Reports from mid-2024 documented his cash purchases of luxury residential units in Seoul, totaling over 20 billion Korean won. The properties are concentrated in two locations: a unit at Trimage in Seongsu-dong, one of Seoul's fastest appreciating districts, driven by a wave of flagship brand openings and urban redevelopment, and a duplex penthouse at Afer Honggang in Yongsan. The penthouse duplex spans 273.86 square meters across 2 floors, faces Yongsan Park and the Han River, and was designed by architect Yoo Hyun-jun and built by Hyundai Engineering and Construction. He reportedly acquired the penthouse unit first, then the unit directly below it, completing both transactions in cash, with the second payment finalized in July 2024. Both properties together represent an investment concentrated in districts where asset appreciation is tied to infrastructure and commercial development, not speculation. The Seongsu-dong choice specifically reflects an awareness of Seoul's urban trajectory that goes beyond simply buying expensive property. The district has undergone a documented transformation from an industrial zone into a premium lifestyle destination, attracting global luxury brands and driving residential prices sharply upward. Buying in that corridor before the full appreciation cycle completes is a different kind of decision from buying in an already established luxury address. Number 3. The quiet architect of a fashion empire, V. Kim Taehyung is the BTS member whose public persona has always carried the strongest visual identity. From the earliest days of the group, he stood out for an aesthetic sensibility that felt self-directed rather than label-manufactured. The way he dressed, the photographers he referenced, the films he cited in interviews. Fans noticed it early. The industry took longer to catch up. When it did, the commercial consequences were documented in ways that go well beyond standard celebrity endorsement metrics. Taehyung's entry into the fashion world as a serious commercial force began with his appointment as a global brand ambassador for Celine in March 2023. The French house confirmed the partnership when he appeared on the cover of Elle Korea's April issue that year, referred to in the magazine's own copy as the new Celine boy. What followed over the next 10 months was one of the most closely analyzed celebrity brand impact cases in modern luxury marketing. An influencer analytics platform called Lefty tracked his Instagram activity from March through December 2023 and reported that across only 31 stories and posts related to the brand, he generated $274 million in earned media value for Celine in that single year. That figure is not revenue, it is the calculated equivalent of what the same exposure would have cost in paid advertising. 331 posts across 10 months, producing that number means each individual post was carrying approximately $8.8 million in equivalent media value on average. The business impact extended beyond media metrics into actual financial performance. In 2023, while the 4 largest luxury brands operating in Korea, Hermès, Chanel, Louis Vuitton, and Dior, collectively saw their operating profit decline by 19%, Celine Korea's operating profit rose by 591% in the same year, climbing from 2.5 billion won to 17 billion won. Their revenue increased more than 6-fold, reaching 307.2 billion won from 50.1 billion won the year prior. Industry sources in Korea directly attributed the surge to Taehyung's ambassadorship and the brand's growing presence among younger Korean consumers, driven by his association with it. A single ambassador relationship producing a 591% operating profit increase for a major luxury house in one calendar year is not a standard endorsement outcome, it is a documented commercial event. In July 2023, he added a second major luxury partnership, becoming a global ambassador for Cartier. His debut campaign was for the Panthère de Cartier line, one of the Maison's most historically significant jewelry families, featuring sculptural diamond pieces and the iconic tête-à-tête panther bracelet. Cartier framed the partnership not as a seasonal campaign, but as a long-term alignment with the brand's core design identity. During the spring and summer 2026 Paris Fashion Week cycle, his presence at the Celine show generated approximately $13 million in earned media value for the brand from a small number of Instagram posts, pushing Celine into the top 10 of Lefty's global EMV brand rankings for that Fashion Week season. BTS members collectively generated $39.26 million in EMV across all fashion weeks in that cycle, and Taehyung led that figure individually. Away from the fashion partnerships, his real estate moves follow the same pattern visible across the BTS membership: high-value, zero-leverage acquisitions in Seoul's most exclusive districts. In September 2025, property registration records confirmed he purchased a 273.96 square meter duplex penthouse at PH 129, known as the Penthouse Cheongdam, in the Cheongdam-dong area of Gangnam District in Seoul, for 14.2 billion Korean won, paid entirely in cash, with no mortgage or collateral recorded against the transaction. Cheongdam-dong is the address most associated with Seoul's highest concentration of luxury flagship stores and the residential preferences of the country's top-tier entertainment and business figures. His Hybe share allocation from the 2020 IPO grant, 68,385 shares given to each BTS member, adds an equity layer to a portfolio that now spans luxury fashion influence, premium Seoul real estate, and long-term entertainment industry ownership. What makes Taehyung's position distinct from a standard celebrity brand portfolio is the measurability of his commercial impact. Most celebrity endorsements are valued on reach and association. His are valued on documented profit movement inside the balance sheets of some of the world's oldest luxury houses. Number 2, the youngest investor in the room, Jungkook. Jungkook joined Big Hit Entertainment at 13 years old. He had auditioned for other agencies before that, receiving offers from several of them, but chose Big Hit, then a company so small and financially precarious that its founder, Bang Si-hyuk, has since admitted publicly that BTS debuted just before the company would have gone bankrupt. Jungkook was the youngest member of a group signed to a label that was, by any conventional industry measure, a high-risk bet. He was also the member who, years later, would quietly build one of the most carefully structured individual investment portfolios among all 7 members, beginning moves that most people his age in any country would not think to make until a decade later. His first documented real estate purchase came in 2018 when he bought a unit at the Seoul Forest Trimmage Complex in Songsu-dong for 1.95 billion Korean won. He sold that same unit in 2020 for 2.05 billion won, netting a gain of approximately 100 million won in a relatively short holding period. That transaction, small by the standards of what came later, established a pattern: buy in a district with appreciation potential, hold, exit with a return. He was 20 years old when he made that first purchase. In December 2020, he moved significantly larger, acquiring a standalone single-family home in Itaewon-dong, Yongsan-gu, for 7.63 billion Korean won, paid entirely in cash at a rate of 39.59 million won per 3.3 square meters of land. He was 23 years old at the time of that transaction. The Itaewon address is not a random luxury neighborhood. It is specifically the corridor where the late Lee Kun-hee, chairman of Samsung Group, maintained his residence. The current residents of the surrounding streets include the chairman of SK Group, Nongshim, Hyundai Motor Group, and Shinsegae Group. It is referred to in Korean real estate circles as Itaewon Hill, the domestic equivalent of an address that signals not wealth alone, but a specific category of long-term, generational asset positioning. Jungkook did not buy a penthouse in a new luxury tower. He bought land in a neighborhood where properties rarely come to market, and where, as one real estate broker was quoted saying, even an asking price of over 10 billion Korean won per 3.3 square meters could still attract buyers willing to wait. After the purchase, he demolished the existing structure, a two-story house built in 1976, and secured a construction permit from Yongsan District Office in 2021 to build a completely new home on the same land. The new structure was designed with a total floor area of 1,161 square meters across 2 basement levels and 3 above-ground floors. By September 2024, with construction complete, the property's assessed market value had risen to approximately 10 billion Korean won, representing a paper gain of roughly 2.3 billion won from his original purchase price in under 4 years. That appreciation happened not because of brand association or media attention, but because of the fundamental mechanics of a scarce, high-demand land address in one of Seoul's most protected residential districts. Beyond that flagship property, his portfolio includes additional villas, apartments, and commercial spaces across Seoul. A Yongsan District villa valued at 4 billion won at the time of a 2021 ownership transfer to his brother's name has also been reported across Korean media. His Hybe share allocation, the same 68,835 shares given to all 7 members at the time of the 2020 IPO, reached a value of approximately 21.4 billion Korean won by December 2025, placing him on Korea's published list of the top 100 richest shareholders under 30 years old. This list is dominated by technology heirs and children of chaebol founding families. Jungkook's presence on it as a self-made artist who debuted at 13 from a nearly bankrupt small agency is a data point the list itself does not contextually explain, but the facts behind it do. His solo debut album, Golden, released in November 2023, entered global charts and established his commercial footing as an individual artist entirely separate from the BTS infrastructure. The album's lead single, Seven, featuring Lotto, made him the first Asian act to spend multiple weeks at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 as a solo performer. That chart performance has direct downstream effects on publishing revenue, streaming royalties, and the long-term licensing value of his solo catalog, assets that compound quietly in the background long after the chart run ends. Number 1. The blueprint nobody saw coming. Jimin. Jimin Park is the member most people would least expect to find at the top of a list about hidden business strategy. His public identity within BTS has always been built around emotional depth and performance precision. The member who cried during early award speeches, whose solo work leans into vulnerability and feeling rather than commercial calculation. That image is real and it is earned. It is also, as it turns out, only one half of what he has been doing with his time and his money. The other half has been unfolding in property registries, corporate shareholder documents, and the kind of high-value real estate transactions that only surface when someone files the paperwork. His entry into Seoul's premium property market began with a purchase at 91 Hanam, the residential complex that sits at the absolute top of the Seoul luxury real estate hierarchy. 91 Hanam is not simply an expensive building, it is the most expensive apartment complex in the entire country, equipped with a 4-step security verification system, a golf course, a swimming pool, party rooms, and breakfast service run by hotel-trained chefs. The complex is nicknamed the Beverly Hills of Korea, and its resident list reads like a directory of South Korea's entertainment and business elite. G-Dragon owns a unit there. So does actress Jun Ji-hyun. Jimin purchased his unit for approximately 5.3 billion Korean won, paid in cash. He was not taking out a mortgage on a lifestyle purchase. He was making a calculated entry into the country's single most prestigious residential address, while the broader market was still ascending. He did not stop there. Separate reporting in Korean media confirmed a second property acquisition, an older apartment in Banpo-Jugong, a district in Seochogu on the southern bank of the Han River. The Banpo-Jugong area operates on an entirely different investment logic from 91 Hanam. It is not about prestige or amenities. It is about land value, redevelopment potential, and long-term positioning in one of Seoul's most consistently strong-performing residential districts. The area sits adjacent to the Han River, benefits from well-established school zones and transport infrastructure, and has been subject to ongoing redevelopment discussions that have historically driven significant value appreciation in the surrounding blocks. Buying an older unit in Banpo-Jugong is not a lifestyle decision. It is a real estate thesis, the kind of thesis that requires understanding how Seoul's urban development cycles work and where value is likely to migrate over a 10 to 15-year horizon. Jimin was executing that thesis quietly, without announcement, while simultaneously recording albums and performing in front of stadium crowds. His equity position in Hybe adds a third layer to the portfolio. Like all 7 BTS members, he received 68,385 shares in Hybe at the time of the company's 2020 IPO, gifted directly by founder Bang Si-hyuk in recognition of the members' contribution to making the company what it became. The value of those shares has been estimated at approximately 14 to 15 million US dollars in recent corporate disclosure cycles, depending on market fluctuations. Combined with his real estate holdings across 2 strategically distinct property types, premium prestige and long-term development play, the picture that emerges is of someone operating with genuine portfolio diversification logic rather than simply parking wealth in visible assets. His commercial activity outside Korea adds further dimension to this. He became a global ambassador for Dior Men, appearing in the brand's Spring 2024 campaign, photographed by Alistair McLellan, one of fashion's most established editorial photographers. He followed that with an ambassadorship to Tiffany & Co., joining campaign partners that included Zoe Kravitz and Gal Gadot. 2 simultaneous global luxury ambassadorships with houses that sit at the very top of the LVMH portfolio is not a standard K-pop endorsement package. It reflects a commercial valuation of his individual influence that operates entirely independently of the BTS group identity. What places Jimin at number 1 on this list is not any single transaction or partnership. It is the combination of early entry, strategic diversification, and the complete absence of public positioning around any of it. The restaurants have names above the door. The art collections get posted on Instagram. The real estate is filed in registries that most people never read.